Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Friday morning to you all. I hope you guys are doing well out there this morning and having a fantastic start to your day, great start to your weekend, whatever it may be for you folks out there. Here to feed you guys some updated information about this significant storm system that's already overspreading a large portion of the country. We have a winter storm that's unfolding across areas of the Great Lakes region. It has already been ongoing across the Midwest with blizzard conditions. We're going to give you some updated information on that. Not a whole lot has changed from last night's video, but we will give you guys some revised information on it. We're going to talk about the severe weather side to this, where there is some severe thunderstorm warnings. As of right now, we will probably have more over the next several hours. So not a whole lot has changed with this severe weather threat across the south and southeast from last night's video. The outlook hasn't really changed, but we will give you guys some updated information on that. We'll talk about the northeast. How much snow, how much rain, how much wind action can you guys get? And we will speak on the lake effect snow event that will crank up after the storm pulls out and some really cold air moves over some of these Great Lakes, all of the Great Lakes. But the lake effect snow event could be the most significant across Lake Erie and especially Lake Ontario. We'll talk about some details on the Pacific Northwest. Even the valley areas could see some winter weather as some Arctic air will ooze into these lower elevations. And then after all that, we're going to give you some updated information about this winter storm threat across the south and eastern U.S. as we get to the end of this weekend into early next week. And I'll be completely honest with you folks, I'll be so happy when we can move past this storm system that we have going right now, so we can finally just focus in on one storm system. At least we think. There's some noise late next week into next weekend also, and I'll actually briefly mention that in this video. Take advantage of those timestamps. They're there to help you folks to skip ahead the sections of the video or just things you want to hear about. I have them up right when I drop the video, so definitely take advantage of those. But there's a lot of details we'll feed you guys in this video, just like how we've been doing. And yeah, if you folks have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. I want to give a special thanks to Meredith Leapart. You donated to the channel, so thank you very much. And also John Malvitz, I think that's how you pronounce your last name. Thank you for donating to the channel. I always want to show my appreciation. If you guys got anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put those in the comments below. It gives me an opportunity to pray over it, and it gives others an opportunity to do so too. So let's get rocking and rolling. What's going on out there? We got a winter storm affecting the Midwest. We got heavy snow moving into Chicago. I checked the radar out of that area, and it does look like it is snowing. Not sure if this is hitting the ground here in western Michigan yet. This radar sometimes shows moisture where it's not really falling. All heavy rain down here in southern sections of Indiana. I mean, it looks like it's raining in central Illinois too, but you don't have to go very far north to start to get into that snow. This is all storm action in Arkansas. Arkansas, you're seeing a lot of rain, a lot of storms, but you know, here in a couple of days you could have a winter storm ongoing. Of course, we'll talk about that here in a second, but a lot of shower and storm activity ahead of this in Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi. Not a whole lot in the way right now of severe weather. It looked like overnight, from just what I'm seeing from social media, things like that, that it did not get too bad overnight last night as far as tornadoes. In fact, I mean, I didn't see really any tornado warnings pop up on my feed from overnight, but I might be wrong. You guys let me know what you saw last night in northeast Texas and Arkansas. Of course, you're dealing with the weather right now, but we got a little weather out here in the northern Rockies. Snowing just in the typical areas it does when moisture overrides the Rockies and those higher elevations. So let's move forward here. The Storm Prediction Center, not a whole lot's changed from last night's video. Still have this slight risk that rides all the way up into Raleigh. Covers a good chunk of North Carolina, almost all of South Carolina, level 2 out of 5 risk. Columbia, Charleston, Savannah, Atlanta, Columbus, Tallahassee, Dothan, Mobile, Birmingham, and then we have this enhanced risk for really what's going to happen between now and about lunchtime in this region. So we do need to be more aware with the weather in this enhanced risk, because it could get pretty intense here in the next couple hours. But you know, the tornado risk with this today, just a 5% risk of a tornado in the Brown area within 25 miles any given location in all these regions right here. Wind threat, it'll be the most significant between now and the next several hours, like I mentioned, as the best ingredients for winds, high winds, will be right into here for a period for about half the day today. So 30% risk of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. And then you also have a hatch risk for significant winds. That means that winds could exceed. There's a 10% risk of winds exceeding 65 knots or higher, which is around 70 to 75 miles per hour. The yellow area is a 15% risk of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. Hail threat, pretty low, just a 5% risk. Excessive rainfall outlook, not very high today. We do have a slight risk, though, over some of the big cities. Washington, D.C. up to Baltimore, Philadelphia, New York City all the way up to Boston. And this is really for the later period of the day into like this evening into the overnight hours. We have a slight risk of excessive rainfall, which means you have at least a 15% risk of flash flood guidance being met in this region. And then we look at all our watches and warnings. Blizzard warnings in the red, winter storm warnings in the pink. And look, just like we mentioned in last night's video, we have now have blizzard warnings in areas of Michigan. Green Bay has a blizzard warning. It looks like up here close to Duluth has a blizzard warning. Winter storm warnings everywhere in between. Winter weather advisories pretty much bordering all these winter weather alerts up into here. And we do have some lingering winter weather advisories down here. I didn't see much in the way of any kind of winter weather down here. You guys down here in northwest Arkansas, southwest Missouri, areas of Oklahoma will have to let me know what you're seeing this morning. But a lot of wind alerts, wind advisories that go from Texas pretty much all the way to New Hampshire. Winter weather advisories up for Maine. They have not issued winter storm warnings. But we do have some winter storm warnings up for the Adirondacks where a quick several inches of heavy wet snow will fall. Flood watches up in the green. And then we continue just to have an onslaught of winter weather out here in the Rockies. We have blizzard warnings for every county in southern Idaho. Pretty wild stuff out here. So that's what's going on. So let's talk about the southeast threat today. And we're just going to take a look at tropical tidbits here, and we will get it in motion. Starting off this morning, HRRR model is doing pretty well with what the storms actually look like across Arkansas, moving into Mississippi. And these will continue to move throughout the area. We start to get to about 9, 10 a.m. A lot of action begins to move into western Tennessee. Just heavy rain up here in western Kentucky, gusty winds, southern Illinois. But you got to watch all these storms right into here in Mississippi and Alabama. They will have some ingredients that support strong winds and just that small risk, that 5% risk of a tornado. So we're starting to get to this is about lunchtime. These storms are making their way through Alabama, even some stormy conditions south of Nashville. And just the scattered convection in Georgia, South Carolina, and we got to watch these cells down here in southwest Mississippi. This is around lunchtime, 1 p.m. In fact, they've, I think they've messed with schools throughout the southeast today. In fact, my girls are getting out early today. It's kind of a half day, and it's wild. I mentioned this in last night's video. They mentioned that schools are going to get out early, and then like 15 minutes later, the Storm Prediction Center dropped the risk for severe weather. Not completely, but they lowered it is what I should say. So, there's probably going to be a lot of people across the southeast where if their schools were affected, work was affected, you're going to wonder why. I think that this threat, I wouldn't say is significantly lower than Tuesday's severe weather threat, but I do think it is a decent bit lower than Tuesday's threat. But we're probably going to get some tornado warnings out here and some severe thunderstorm warnings. But we're getting a lot of storm activity moving into Georgia, kind of starting to move out of Alabama this afternoon. This is around 4 p.m. A line of storms could make their way through Atlanta. Some stormy conditions down there near the Panhandle. We'll have to watch these cells down here in the Panhandle this afternoon. So if you're down there in the Panhandle of Florida, be aware. Some heavy rain begins to move into North Carolina. Gusty winds behind this. And then South Carolina later this afternoon to this evening. We'll watch for any of these storms. And I do want to watch these storms in eastern North Carolina and then extreme eastern South Carolina later this evening. The ingredients will spike in this area. So any of these storms moving through, please be aware of any alerts. If you're out and about in the town or going out on a date night this evening in the eastern Carolina, certainly be aware of severe weather. And then the front pulls through and then we're done. Updraft velocity swath is not very high in the southeast, really. There's little pockets here where it shows some rotation with some of these storms. But all in all, not a huge deal at all. And, you go up to North Carolina. And, it's not very high, folks. It really isn't. And let's make sure we clear out the entirety of the run here. We do have to watch, maybe around the Norfolk area. We'll have to watch for that. But I don't think that... As of now, I don't think that the severe weather threat is even close to what it was for Tuesday. But we'll see. Hopefully I don't, eat the crow there and it ends up being bad. But I don't think it is. Friday morning, waking up this morning to some very gusty winds across the deep south. The winds will pick up across, probably the mid-south, Tennessee, Kentucky. Winds will start gusting the Cumberland Plateau to 50, 60 miles per hour. Not, sustained, but just gust. Start to get very windy up in Kentucky. Look at these strong winds. And of course, if you're up in the higher elevations, the mountains of the southern Alps, like the Tennessee mountains, like the Smokies, and even the higher elevations of North Carolina, you folks will start to get very windy. Gets very windy here late morning into early afternoon in Alabama. Winds will begin to pick up in Georgia and the Carolinas later this afternoon, this evening. But I think the best wind field, the strongest wind field is displaced to the north when you compare to what we saw Tuesday. I think the strongest winds are going to be up here in the Ohio Valley, the Midwest, Kentucky, West Virginia. It's going to get very windy tonight. And it will start to get very windy in the Delmarva later tonight also. And then just the back end of this system will probably produce some gusty winds overnight. So even across this area of the country, tonight when you're sleeping, you're going to hear a lot of rattling and just rocking and rolling overnight because of the wind. But moving forward, this is how much rain's expected. This is really what's falling right now. This is what's to come. It's not going to be as much rain with this, but I mean, someone could squeeze in a 1 to 2 inches of rain again in northeast Georgia through this favored area that gets lift from these kind of systems. So some more rain is likely. Another washout moving in later this afternoon to this evening for western North Carolina, upstate of South Carolina, into Virginia, where you could get maybe 3/4 of an inch of rain to somebody get 2, maybe 2.5 inches of rain. We'll see what happens there. Northeast, here comes the moisture entering the corner of your screen here. I think we could start out as some heavy wet snow in the higher elevations of West Virginia. I think that like northwest Ohio certainly could start out as a burst of snow this afternoon, but I think eventually you do switch to rain. Even northeast Ohio. I mean, some heavy wet snow to start this off. It has the chance to happen. And then you're starting to move this into Pennsylvania. We'll stop it here. It's around 7 p.m., 8 p.m. this evening. I think we could get a round of really heavy wet snow to really start this off, even getting into the southern tier, the Finger Lakes region, maybe a little snow, Buffalo points south or points north. And this continues, could snow for a few to maybe several hour period. Heavy wet snow, but you can tell it's mixing with the greens. It's struggling. This is a very marginal event. And then this continues. I think we could get maybe a little snow into the Catskills, a period of heavy wet snow, maybe even the Berkshires later tonight. This is starting to get around 11 p.m., midnight tonight. And I do think after midnight tonight, once you start to get into the Adirondacks, I mean, you'll probably even get some snow in the Tuckhill Plateau, the Green and White Mountains. I mean, it's even showing a period of snow here in kind of the higher elevated regions of central Mass. But this is going to be heavy wet snow, kind of like what you saw with the system a couple days ago. And this will move over, probably deliver a quick few to maybe as much as several inches of snow. An all-out winter storm is ongoing in Vermont, New Hampshire, southeast New Hampshire, and even southern Vermont will probably struggle with rain. Wind-driven rain in Boston, especially after midnight tonight. And then the winter storm begins to take over Maine. They only have winter weather advisories up in Maine, but you definitely could get a quick several inches of wet snow. This is going to be like that concrete snow. It's not going to be a dry snow. And then as the system pulls out, we're going to move into Saturday. Look at the lake effect snows kicking off Lake Erie, Ontario, and of course all the Great Lakes back here too. But I think that this could be have the potential for a pretty significant event across Erie, Ontario. But it really gets going off Lake Erie first tomorrow afternoon. You're going to have a steady streamer coming off, especially south of Buffalo, delivering probably several inches of snow. This could actually go to lake connection here. And actually, the way that the cold air swooping in from the southwest could connect with some energy on Lake Ontario. I think like the Tuckhill Plateau, sort of the western Adirondacks will start to get blasted with heavy snow tomorrow evening. Great for ski country up here. And, it's still snowing. Look at the steady streamer ongoing up here. And then even just some snow down here wrapping around. We're getting into tomorrow night, late tomorrow night, getting into our Sunday morning. We got a period of snow showing up for Kentucky, Ohio, and then it stops right here. We'll get more detailed about this lake effect snow event in probably tonight's video, but this is around midnight, 1 a.m. Sunday morning, and this lake effect snow streamer is popping off all the Great Lakes pretty much. So snowfall, we'll start off this afternoon, not a whole lot, and then you see here's that quick, maybe few to maybe several inches of wet snow in northern PA right here in this region, maybe southwest New York. And then we keep this going. I mean, look up in the Adirondacks, Tuckhill Plateau, a quick few inches of wet snow. So you can get anywhere from 4 to maybe 10 inches of snow in the Adirondacks, depending on your elevation. And then higher favorite areas, Later tonight in Vermont, New Hampshire, several inches of snow is possible. And then just a quick, maybe as much as 4 to 8 inches of snow, of wet snow up here in Maine. But then watch as you keep this going. Watch how these snowfall totals begin to add up in New York. See how they begin to add up. And this only goes out to about Sunday evening. And if we go on and zoom into this region, New York, let's see if we can get here. We go on and zoom into this region. This is just between now and Sunday evening, folks. You already got 1.5 feet of snow just south of Buffalo. Buffalo already getting several inches of snow. And I think the tilt of this lake effect snow band will shift more into Buffalo in the later time period of this lake effect snow event. Tokyo Plateau is getting, this to me looks like a good 6 to 12 inches of snow just between now and Sunday evening, but could be much more than that. North of the area, you're starting to get to maybe 1 foot or more. Adirondacks, a solid, heavy, wet snow from this. Now, once this kind of push of cold air moves over, it'll be snowing in much colder temperatures, probably more of a drier, fluffier snow. But I think the initial push of this will be heavy, wet snow up here for sure. So, winds with this, the initial push from the actual system will get winds whipping out here this afternoon. Winds start to gust in Ohio, western PA to 30 to 40 miles per hour. It is just very windy up in West Virginia. 50 to 60 mile per hour wind gusts are possible through western Maryland also. Starting to get gusty also around the Delmarva, the I-95 corridor. And we continue to keep this going. This is starting to get into this evening. Very strong winds whip through the entire Northeast. Central New York starting to gust to 40 to 50 miles per hour. And of course, these higher elevations of Vermont, New Hampshire will start to get blasted with some strong winds. Very strong winds down here in southern New England, 30 as much as 45 mile per hour wind gusts. And the winds along the coastal regions of Mass, Rhode Island, up the Maine, New Hampshire will start to gust to closer to 45, 50, 55 mile per hour wind gusts. So watch out for coastal flooding. And then as the back end energy sort of flies through, the cold air pushes in, it kickstarts the wind again. And then look at these strong winds as we're getting into midday tomorrow, gusting to maybe as much as 65, 70 miles per hour with lake effect snow beginning. So Buffalo, I wouldn't be surprised you guys get a blizzard warning issued sometime between now and the next 24 hours. We got to watch this. And look at these strong winds getting into late Saturday evening coming off Lake Ontario. 50, 60 mile per hour wind gusts and just very breezy conditions everywhere throughout the weekend in New York. So, in the Northeast. But a rainfall between now and tomorrow afternoon, a good 1 to 3 inches of rain again in southern New England. Some of these other areas will be more rain and snow mixed, but definitely a quick washout moving once again along the I-95 corridor. The south central U.S., it's a much quieter day today. Of course, it's not quiet this morning in Arkansas, Louisiana, but this will finally head on out. We could have a little bit of snow later this morning in northern Arkansas as cold air catches up with this. This heads on out. Might get a little bit of snow in St. Louis to round this off. Back in snow falling in northern sections of Missouri. And then this heads on out, and we'll talk about the north central U.S. here in a second, give you some updates on this winter storm. But then once we get into this evening, folks, it's a quieter period. Enjoy it. There's an Arctic air mass really surging in from the north. So, go out and enjoy the night because the weather's going to change a whole lot between now and the end of the weekend and early next week. But we're getting into the overnight hours into tomorrow morning. It's not really a drop or flake of anything. It's pretty quiet out there. So. But it's a different story up here in the north central U.S., which is the Midwest, upper Midwest, Great Lakes region. And we take a look at what's going on in Chicago right now. Check this out. Reports of snow accumulating on the road. It's snowing in Chicago. And if you look really closely here, look at that lightning bolt that popped up here. So we are getting thunder snow with this, which tells us it's a highly dynamic system. Now, I know you're not seeing snow up here or back here. This is just because we're only in the radar of the National Weather Service out of Chicago, so it's really only reflecting really around the Chicago area. But heavy snow moving in to the city of Chicago. It's snowing up in Milwaukee now, and this looks like it's pretty heavy too. In fact, you switch it to the reflectivity here, which kind of indicates how heavy the precipitation is, and that is heavy snow, folks. I don't know if you're having any mixing issues along the actual coastal regions of Lake Michigan, but that is some heavy snow to kickstart this winter storm for you folks. Some big-time frontogenesis is moving into Chicago. Let me know what you're seeing down here. But just reporting rain down in Bloomington, Champaign, Indianapolis, it looks like rain, but you can see what this rain snow line is. In fact, you might be able to see it here. I haven't looked at this. Yes, you can see it very well. You see how you have this like kind of mushed up area right into here? That is your rain snow line. You see how it's kind of moving north? Will it make it to Chicago? That's a big question. You see how you got this little weird area right here? South of that area, it's raining. North of that area, it's snowing. You can actually see that based off the snowflake here and then the rain signal down there. So that's very interesting to see. But let's talk about the rest of this winter storm. And I'm just going to speak on time frames. Remember, this is in Central Time, but if I don't mention it, this is in Eastern Time. So back this up 1 hour, 6 a.m., we're starting to get into 8 a.m., 9 a.m., 10 a.m., and this snow is getting all the way up to Green Bay at this point. Still snowing back in Iowa, all out blizzard conditions because you got Arctic air up against this low. This is creating a tight gradient, which is creating very strong winds. So you keep this going. I think this afternoon, that's when you can start to flirt with rain in Chicago. But will it happen? Not sure. Here comes that 980 millibar low, snowing very heavily, it looks like. And maybe northern Indiana, maybe northwest sections of Ohio. We'll see if that happens. I'm not sure if it will, but it does show this afternoon a period of heavy, wet snow falling. All rain for the rest of Ohio down here, certainly southern Indiana. And you take it all the way to about 6 p.m. this evening. It's just an all-out winter storm, all-out blizzard for certain areas. I think Green Bay, you'll have blizzard conditions by the time you get into this evening. Moderate to heavy snow moving into the UP of Michigan. All of Michigan at this point seeing snow. Even could be snowing in Detroit later this afternoon, this evening. How long will it stay snow? It's a big question. This low looks like it's ticked a little bit east. But, if this run of the HRRR model is correct, it would stay all snow in Chicago. And then we start to get into the middle of the night tonight. Remember, Arctic air is crashing down the backside of this low. So even though the snow kind of lightens up back here just a little bit, the winds really pick up behind this low, which is right in here, starting to move in over the Lake Huron region. But the snow is starting to wrap in from the north, and blizzard conditions, I think, is possible later tonight, all the way down to Chicago, Milwaukee, heavy snow in northern Michigan and the UP of Michigan. And then I think that by the time we're getting into tomorrow afternoon, I think the majority of the system's done. It's just the leftover backside energy in the Arctic air begins to funnel in over the western Great Lakes region. And you start to get lake effect snow that begins to fall. So it's like it's going to be hard to figure out kind of the difference between the actual storm system and the lake effect snow. But immediately, lake effect snow begins to pop off from the north to the south and off Lake Michigan, more so northwest to southeast. And then more heavy snow will add on to this. And we keep this going. This continues all the way through, and it only goes out 48 hours, but this will continue through all the way through our Sunday. We'll be dealing with a lake effect snow up here. So how much snow in this region? Not going to get as detailed as we did in last night's video, just because this is moving in now and due to just time. But heavy snow in this region. Chicago, I'm not even going to try to forecast Chicago. It's a now thing. You guys will have to let me know what you're going to see, but it is, if you look very closely, they are trying to say Lake Michigan is going to play a factor into this, where the totals go from like a foot and a half, well, I would say around a foot, 8 to 12 inches, to significantly lower around the immediate coastal region. So it almost looks like they're only showing 2.5 inches of snow in Chicago. I think you could get a quick 2.5 inches of snow from this band moving in right now. But this is snowfall just between now and Saturday morning. So it's not done. All right. And then you go all the way out to... Let's go all the way out as far as it'll go. Let's go all the way out to Sunday evening. And, this is from the lake effect snow also up here. But, somebody might squeeze in 2.5 feet of snow up here in the UP of Michigan before it's all said and done. Maybe 3 feet. But this is how much snow between now and the length of the system. I do apologize for not having the cities and things pulled up. But, Janesville, maybe 8 to 12 inches of snow. Madison, kind of the same thing. Several inches of snow in Minneapolis, but it looks like they might have dropped their totals in Minneapolis. I think it's because the low has ticked a little bit further east, which is good for southern sections. But, snowfall, down here in northern Indiana, depending on where you are, 3 to as much as 8 inches of snow. It just depends on where you are. But lower Michigan going to get hit hard, but southeast Michigan, it's going to be close. I think there's going to be some wide range of snowfall totals here in southeast Michigan. But this is what it looks like in these regions. Green Bay is going to get a good foot 15 inches of snow, I think, in this setup here. So Milwaukee, I think anywhere from maybe just a few inches of snow to maybe as much as a foot, 14 inches of snow. I just think it's going to be a tough one because of this lake. And they discuss this, folks. The locals talk about it. The National Weather Service in these regions talk about it. So definitely pay attention to your locals. I mean, I always want you to watch my channel. But definitely here, I see a lot of comments say, Mitch, you're better than the locals. The truth is, and I appreciate that. I really do with all my heart. But the truth is, I don't think that's true. Your locals know your area. The locals know your area best. They know all your geographical features. They know your towns by heart. They town names. They know all this stuff. Your locals only have a certain allotted time to really talk about the weather, so they can't really speak on a lot of details. I mean, you got to think these people on TV, they probably only get a certain amount of minutes to talk about the weather. I got all the time in the world. And, you know, they're always going to go more conservative. But I appreciate it, but I'm not any better than the locals, I don't think. But thank y'all so much for saying that. It means the world. But enough of all the soap opera stuff. But we keep rolling as we get into this afternoon. The winds really increase across Wisconsin, Michigan. You start to gust to 40 to 50 miles per hour in Green Bay with heavy snow falling. You could get a period of calm weather in Chicago, maybe because of this low really close by. And then kind of back under this low pressure, you're getting gusts through the Midwest, through the Ohio Valley, gusting to 40, 55 miles per hour. Up here in northern lower Michigan, I think you'll get an all-out blizzard ongoing. If you live up in this region, Gaylord, all these areas right up in here, it's just the first city I thought of. You know, wind gusts somebody could gust to 60 miles per hour up here. And you keep this going, and I mean, even on the backside of the system, folks, I mean, I think the winds could gust pretty good in this region. So very strong winds throughout the area for sure. Out west, we got a lot of weather going on too. Just heavy bursts of snow. You see that boundary kind of sagging south. You're going to have blizzard conditions in southern Ohio. Southern Idaho, you're going to have blizzard conditions today. That's why you had the blizzard warnings. Not a ton of snow, but certainly some heavy snow in this region. But this Arctic boundary, you can see it right in here, sags south, and it's going to bring some very strong winds with it and some heavy snow. And then northern Cal, the higher elevations getting hit with heavy snow later this afternoon, this evening. And then the moisture will move back north. And then as we're getting into tomorrow morning, this is when some freezing rain could begin to fall in Eugene. Some snow maybe further north. And then look at this freezing rain event in the valleys. Remember, Arctic air is shallow. So this Arctic air is oozing down into the valleys of western Oregon. This is your classic ice storm setup for these areas. It happens, I don't know, you guys will have to let me know. It happens every so often out here. I mean, I would say every couple winters where you get a nasty ice storm into the valleys of Oregon. And certainly looking like it's going to be the case with this. And then this moves out. Maybe could last a good 24, 36 hours. And in fact, we zoom in. I know it's kind of blurry on your screen. National Weather Service out of, this is just a National Weather Service out of Oregon. I think it's Portland, Oregon. Winter storm watch is up for Salem, Oregon, Portland, Oregon City, Hillsboro, Eugene, winter storm watch. So, yeah, I mean, this could be upgraded to ice storm warnings, winter storm warnings. And, you know, all we can do is look at this. I mean, look, you look right up in here in the valley regions, a few inches of snow could add up. And if you look at this area right in here, that's showing Portland getting a couple inches of snow. Okay, it shows Salem getting a couple inches of snow. And then what I'm worried about the most, folks, is this ice. Look at this ice totals. The National Weather Service going for widespread 1/4 to 1/2 inch of freezing rain in this area. And this is some hefty ice, folks. Down to Salem, Albany, this would show a significant ice storm in these regions. So here it comes. Please be aware of this weekend. Seems like everybody's getting winter weather. It really does, except South Carolina. But anyways, won't cry about that too much. But the Rockies getting hit pretty good with heavy snow. But it's kind of just a very small corridor, and I think this is associated with that Arctic boundary and the energy associated with it. So heavy snow could fall in Salt Lake City today. Could get accumulations, heavy snow in southern Idaho, and then western Wyoming, and then the Rockies of Colorado. Northwest Nevada, certainly going to get a few to as much as several inches of snow from this between now and Saturday morning. Temperatures, weird day in the southeast. Just depends on where the storms are. Could hold on to cold air for dear life in the CAD regions of the Carolinas and northwest Georgia. You know, the Carolinas and Georgia could be a weird state where it's in the 40s in Greenville, Spartanburg, and then the 70s in Savannah. So, you know, it's just kind of one of those setups. But you see the punch of cold air. This is just the first kind of blast of cold air moving in, right? This isn't the really, really cold air. This is sort of blast number 1. But, you know, it's above average temperature-wise, where you're going to have a winter storm. It's the cold air that's moving in behind it that's going to be very cold. But, I mean, you're going to have a pretty marginal winter storm in these areas. The snow falling back in Iowa is going to be cold. But, you know, this is going to be a pretty, I guess you would say, warm snow, heavy, wet snow. And I think this is why it could be very dangerous up in Michigan. And, I mean, even up in the UP, it'll be snowing like in the 20s. So, you know, not necessarily for you guys' standards, the coldest snow in the world. Well, up here and around this time of the year, you get a lot of dry snow. But the Northeast, chilly day, but nothing too crazy compared to average. Out west, here comes the Arctic tundra dropping into Montana. Karen, you know, it looks like you're going to freeze up here. It's going to be pretty rough, well below zero for high temperatures. I mean, it's wild that your high temperature, and in fact, you know, your temperature, yeah, I mean, that's your high temperature, flat out. Imagine if your high temperature is 25 below zero. So, cold air, and here it is. This Arctic air is going to ooze into these valleys. And that's why we got this ice storm threat down here in the valleys of Oregon. But you see how cold it is right in the middle of the country. I mean, Kansas City is going to be frigid today for high temperatures. So, you know, check out where you are on your screen. So let's move on to this winter storm threats across the south. So let's check out the energy. Arctic air is going to be oozing in at the end of the weekend, just kind of a reinforcing shot. At the same time, you see this energy right in here in the Pacific. This is coming out the Pacific into the western U.S. Arctic air coming down, piece of energy shooting down also. So what do we get? This energy comes down, runs into all this Arctic air that's going to be moving on top of it, and you get an overrunning event late Sunday into Monday into Tuesday across this area. This energy right into here. Arctic air right on top of it. Okay? And then you keep this going, and then we're going to try to have some sort of phasing with all this energy and this energy back here. And the GFS says, hey, we're going to get a pretty big winter storm from basically the deep south all the way up into the Appalachian Mountains, all the way potentially affecting areas of North Carolina, Virginia, all the way into the East Coast, the I-95 corridor, and then it wraps into the region. So that's what the energy looks like with this. You combine that energy with this cold air dropping down. Remember, you got this energy shooting down into this region, and look at these very cold temperatures. I mean, this is getting into Sunday morning, all right? That energy has not even moved in yet. And we already have cold air settled in. So it's your classic, get the cold air here first, and then the moisture will overrun it, and then you will get a winter storm risk. And that's exactly what's going to happen in this case. So really, you stop it right here, and you got temperatures that are well below average with moisture on the way. So it's pretty wild to see, folks. But you know, it seems like we've dealt with this like 2 or 3 winters in a row, at least 3 winters in a row, and here we are dealing with it again. Very cold temperatures settle in with moisture around. I mean, you got anomalies that are like, I mean, folks, I mean, this is like in the middle of the day Monday, you know, in Dallas, you got, you know, it's 30 degrees below average in the afternoon of Monday, which is going to put you well below freezing for highs. So what does this system look like? Here it comes. Here comes the moisture. Look at that light snow breaking out across southern Kansas, Oklahoma, getting into northwest Arkansas. And you got to remember, I'm going to say this multiple times as we continue to break down the storm system. This is moisture falling at very, very cold temperatures. So even if it's light snow, it's snow falling in like the teens, maybe single digits in certain areas, low 20s. No issues with accumulation with anything. Get deeper into Sunday night. We get into the middle of the night, Monday. Let's take it all the way to Monday morning. Look at the pink. The pink is freezing rain. Blue is snow, and the little slither of orange you see here, that is sleet. All right, but we still don't know the exact, how this is exactly going to unfold as far as who's going to see what kind of winter weather. But Monday morning, you already have a winter weather event. You're going to get schools canceled most likely in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Well, in fact, I think most people don't have school because of Martin Luther King Day, I believe, for Monday. But so maybe good timing with that. But you're getting into, you know, midday Monday. This is the European model. Freezing rain breaking out across central to eastern Texas, freezing rain down to Shreveport. But look at this snow starting to show up. It's not a big event. The Euro says, hey, a lighter event for Arkansas with this, heavier snow to the south and northern Louisiana. Then you get this stripe of snow that breaks out over central Mississippi Monday evening. Look at this winter weather down here in Jackson, light to moderate snow up into Memphis, and then this heads on out. Look at this freezing rain as we're getting into Tuesday morning, as far south as Baton Rouge, all the way down to Hattiesburg. And the Euro, precipitation-wise, is not a big deal, but check out the GFS. Sunday afternoon, you start to get snow overspreading into northern Arkansas. Kind of the same thing as the Euro, right? A little bit heavier snow in Oklahoma. Snow falling in very cold temperatures. I cannot say that enough here. And you keep this going, and you're thinking, all right, this is going to be kind of like the Euro. And then we get into middle of the night, Sunday night, and then we get into Monday morning. Look how far west this is compared to the European. This is sleet in the orange, which the GFS likes to overdo sleet. But anyways, just know a wintry mess with temperatures well below freezing. Central Texas, northeast Texas, northern Texas. And look at this heavy snow on top of it. In Oklahoma, Arkansas, this is snow falling in very cold temperatures. You keep this going. We take it all the way to midday Monday. This coming Monday. All-out winter storm in Dallas. I mean, you're starting to get freezing rain almost all the way to San Antonio, Austin. Wintry mix moving into Shreveport. Heavy snow in Little Rock. Heavy snow, moderate to heavy snow in Memphis. And you keep this going. This would drop several inches of snow on Arkansas if this is the way it unfolds, with very cold temperatures. And you see the extension of this moisture. I mean, you still got light snow all the way back in Amarillo, Colorado, Kansas, Oklahoma, and an all-out winter storm breaking out across areas of northern, basically the entire central and northern portion of Louisiana, eastern Texas. You keep this going, this turns into an all-out ice storm down here in Louisiana, down to Jackson. I mean, you got freezing rain in Lake Charles all the way into Meridian at this point. Snow still falling in areas of Memphis. And then you got some back-end moisture that comes in behind this Tuesday morning off the GFS and delivers a last little bit of snow as we get into our Tuesday. So what's the signal for this for snow, the European? Here it comes. There's that signal. Drops a quick few inches of snow. In this region, I know you're thinking, Mitch, that's not a lot. Well, this is the Euro. This is the most conservative model. I'll show you the GFS here in a second. And then look at this area of a few inches of snow into Shreveport, and it's not as much winter weather into areas of Texas. Almost called it Tennessee. I do that once a video. But, you know, a few inches of snow into Arkansas gives you about 3 inches of snow, and this is in 24-hour increments, so you're going to see the snow disappear up here. That doesn't mean that it just evaporates, but this is just in 24-hour periods. Shows snow as far south as Jackson, and then your signal is gone. But what about the GFS? Look at that signal on that. That's going for 6 to 8 inches of snow in eastern Oklahoma, Arkansas. Heavy snow in these areas. A substantial winter storm into Memphis for southern standards. Northern Mississippi, heavy snow. And then, I mean, it tries to add in some back end more snow into Oklahoma because that other push. It even dumps a few inches of snow into the panhandle, like the Amarillo area of Texas and Oklahoma, and just a swath of 2 to 4 inches of snow in southern Kansas. So very interesting signal, and then it heads on out. What about the ice? Well, the blend of all models is keeping that there, but I think we could get more ice in this. We're going to start to get very specific on the ice threat with this when we can just fully get past this storm and have a little bit more time to talk about this. But I think that we could get some widespread tenth of an inch of ice totals to a quarter of an inch, depending on where you live. But the blend of all models staying conservative with just the signal here of a few 1/100ths of an inch of ice, all the way down to South Texas. I want to show you this really quick. This is Arkansas, and this is what the GFS is showing for Arkansas lunchtime Monday. Shows moderate to heavy snow right over the area too. You see this, right? Now, what about temperatures for this time frame? This is the difference between like a very marginal winter storm and a snow storm in Arctic air. Check out temperatures, if it would work for me. Temperatures in this area during that time frame, it is snowing heavily in the upper teens, low 20s, folks. So this is not snow falling at 30, 31, 32 degrees. This is snow falling in the teens and low 20s. This will cause major traffic concerns, and just you're not going to be able to travel anywhere in this area. What about the eastern U.S. for the Euro? Here it comes. Winter weather begins to overspread, I think, the northern sections of the Deep South, northern Mississippi, northern Alabama, North Georgia, as early as, Monday midday, Monday afternoon, Monday evening. Light snow into Tennessee. Light snow begins to move even into the upstate of South Carolina off this run. You keep this going, and you're starting to get into the middle of the night, Monday night. It looks like it begins to fizzle apart. It's still got some lingering wintry mix down here. And then we start to get into Tuesday morning. You're thinking, where's the storm? What happened to it? Freezing rain all the way down here. And it just kind of does what the European did in yesterday afternoon's run. It never really gets this storm going, but you do have that stripe of snow showing up for the Delmarva. And I can hear people thinking, well, dang, that's not much for the eastern U.S., but you compare that with the GFS. Here comes the GFS, heavy snow, making its way into Tennessee. I mean, as early as Monday midday to afternoon. Heavy snow into Memphis, to Nashville, all the way to Knoxville, all the way to the eastern hills of Kentucky, snow all the way up into southern sections of Illinois and Indiana. And to keep this going, is the Arctic air going to keep on coming down to help us out here in Georgia and the Carolinas? It just wants to stall out, folks. But, you're getting an all-out icing event for western areas of the Deep South, and then we take it all the way to right here. This is Tuesday morning. This would finally, if this is the way it works out, give you folks in Chattanooga a winter storm. Huntsville, Florence, Alabama, it would bring freezing rain all the way down to Birmingham. We got to watch Atlanta. It's getting very close. A little bit of freezing rain around the Raleigh area. And then check this out. We're getting into midday Tuesday, all-out freezing rain event for Charlotte, close to Raleigh. Snow for the mountains of North Carolina and Tennessee. Look at this back-end light snow all the way back into Arkansas, still kind of moving through. And then it turns into a whopper of a winter storm from D.C., Philadelphia, all the way up in New York City, all the way up into Boston as we're getting to Tuesday evening. And this would be probably a solid winter weather event if this is the way it unfolds for even the upper portion and northwest portion of North Carolina. And look at this back-end snow. You think you're not going to get much in Tennessee, and then the GFS says, hey, heavy snow for all the southern Alps region and west. Kentucky, eastern Tennessee. This is not a forecast, folks. And I just showed you why, because the Euro is showing nothing. The GFS is showing something. Do I think the Euro will move back north with the precipitation? I do. I just don't know how far north. GFS shows an all-out winter storm for these areas right here along the I-95 corridor getting into Tuesday nights. Might get some mixing issues, but this would be a doozy of a winter storm if the GFS happens. And you got a lot of cold air wrapping with it, so there will be no issues. And as this pulls through, look at this heavy snow trying to get all the way down to into North Carolina. So that's something to watch here. I think we're not done with trying to figure out with this storm. I think we still got a lot to figure out with this one. But the snowfall signal with this is certainly there, folks. And here it is. This is the European. It's not as high, but it does show that swath of accumulating snow down here for the Deep South and the Mid-South down here. But it really drops off, as we get into the eastern U.S. Now, GFS, totally different, folks. Here it is in 24-hour periods. Swath of, for Tennessee and Kentucky standards, especially Tennessee, this is substantial snow. Cumberland Plateau gets a lot. This is a lot of snow for southern standards and northern Alabama, northern Mississippi. And look how this increases as we start to get into Tuesday into Wednesday. Heavy snow for you folks in eastern Tennessee, eastern Kentucky, West Virginia. This would be your storm if this is the way it unfolds. D.C., you got a 6 to 8 snowfall kind of signal here, and this would be a doozy for the mid-Atlantic and the Northeast. Big winter storm at very cold temperatures for you folks, and then this heads on out. And then there's a signal right behind it too, guys. And we'll talk more on that here in a bit. But ice, it's not very high right now, but I could see this increasing in North Carolina and Virginia, maybe even the upstate of South Carolina. And then, guys, there's a signal right behind this. Right as the pattern kind of relaxes as we get to the end of next week, I think we're going to get one last hurrah with this pattern. And I like this because the ridge really flexes out west, and then you got a big dip in the jet stream in the eastern U.S. This will allow energy to kind of come down here, really dig. And I do think we have a winter storm risk for next week into next weekend also. I really do. Blocking up here. Ridge right here, huge dip in the jet right in here with the Arctic blast of cold air, kind of one last hurrah. And the European does show something, but it's more of an anti-front kind of setup where you go rain changing to snow once again for the same areas. And yes, it is a bit annoying when you do want snow in the Carolinas, but I'm trying to stay positive. I want to be happy for everybody else getting snow, but of course, me in South Carolina, pouting like a little baby. I certainly would love some snow. Of course, when you're passionate about it, when you talk about it so much for other areas, you do hope that eventually you can pull it in for your home state. I like what the GFS shows, though. As we get into late next week, Another piece of energy delivering more winter weather for the deep south. Not a forecast. We get into next Friday morning. So about a week from today, deliver snow for the deep south. And you're thinking, man, this is about to be a big one for South Carolina and Georgia. But this push of cold air is so intense that it suppresses this. And yes, eventually on Friday afternoon, deliver some snow for my neck of the woods. I love to see blue over my house right there. But you're thinking, man, this is going to be something. And then it kind of fizzles out. And then it tries to come back alive right here. And 2 GFS runs in a row showed this. The overnight run and this morning's run tries to deliver winter weather, kind of like a January 3rd, 2018 event for the coastal regions of North Carolina. I think next week, late next week, obviously early and midway next week needs to be watched. But unfortunately, I think we're going to get to a point where we're only talking about this storm system for the end of this weekend, early next week, but we're going to eventually probably have to start to talk about something also again for late next week into next week. And active times continues. Nothing slowing down anytime soon. That's all I got. God bless all y'all and have a great Friday.